Hey guys, my name is Steve Reichert. I am an adventure photojournalist, which is a pretentious way of saying that I love being outside, telling stories, documenting things with my camera. This channel is all about encouraging you to own your story by telling your story with a camera, not for profit as much as for pleasure and in the inherent good that comes from telling our stories. And I am recently of relative internet fame after creating 180 something videos. I made a video the other day last week where I proclaimed that I am quitting professional photography, and that blew up. We got almost 20,000 views in 1 week. Made many new friends, thank you so much, and I love having new subscribers, meeting new people on this channel. And well, I'm excited tonight to chat with you guys a little bit about what it's been like over the last week, and having shot a wedding immediately after kind of retiring from professional photography, although certainly not retiring from photography as a whole. And some people kind of got the wrong idea there. Hey, Christopher Holiday, welcome. Glad to have you here. You know, a lot of people kind of thought that I was saying I was giving up photography or going to, you know, pull away from this YouTube channel, which is absolutely not the case. It's just refocusing my priorities a little bit. But as part of this shift in my focus and having met a lot of new people, and the channel is almost at, well, it's at 4,300 subscribers now, which isn't huge, but for me this is like huge compared to where I was a year ago. And I would like to just be able to do something, and I'm not going to do the full giveaway tonight, of course, but I want to announce that I'm giving away my Panasonic G7, which was my first 4K camera. And because I have an addiction to gear, I didn't use it super extensively. It's still in really good shape, and I have 5 batteries and a charger with it, no lens, and so I'm announcing this giveaway now. And so if you're interested in entering the giveaway for this camera, what you can do is subscribe to this channel, enable notifications, and then next week, once I finish editing the video, kind of giving you the full rundown and the details, you can participate in that giveaway. And really the reason why I want to give away a camera, number one, I get a lot of questions from people about what is the best camera. And of course, that's a very relative question, because best, you know, when I was shooting the wedding last week, it was sort of a face-off between the Fuji X-T2, the larger APS-C size sensor, and the GH5, the smaller Micro Four Thirds sensor. And I was curious just to kind of see, you know, going into a wedding environment, not as a wedding photographer, what can I do, which camera is better, and totally uncomfortable for me, not a professional in the wedding context ever, and nor could I ever be. Wedding photography, holy crap, wedding photography is hard, in my opinion. Adventure photography, documentary stuff, way easier to me. And I'm going to share that video also next week too, so if you're subscribed to this channel, you'll get those notifications if you enable notifications for my video, which is why I put that in there along with the, you know, if you want to be part of the giveaway as well for the Panasonic G7. I got a question here about the Fuji lenses that I use. What Fuji lenses do I use predominantly? For video, when I'm shooting with the X-T2, I use the 18-55 in-body, or not in-body, it's OIS in the lens. Although there was some exciting news recently from Fuji that they are looking at a way, or they may have a way to bring IBIS, in-body image stabilization, to the actual sensor for their next camera. So that's kind of neat. But the 18-55 is what I do most of my video with, and if I'm shooting hybrid style, where I'm shooting both stills and video, I've gotten some really great results, or results that I'm happy with from the 18-55. Also shooting stills and video interchangeably, as long as it's not super low light. And I made some videos a couple of weeks back, and I'm just trying to find them here. If you go to my channel and you look around a little bit, there's playlists for the Fuji X-T2, and you can see some of what I did with the X-T2 recently when I was in Dubai. And you got to do a little bit of digging to find this, but if you get the Fuji X-T2 playlist, there is Rhythm of Oman, which I shot almost entirely, and that's on the playlist there. And I shot that almost entirely with the 18-55. And there's a couple other, well, that's a pretty big playlist. It's a 26 video playlist of just what I've done with the Fuji X-T2. But I've done a lot with the 18-55 in stills and video, and you can see examples of both. And I've been really happy. If there's one lens that I say I probably have used more than anything in a hybrid context, it would be the 18-55, which is a kit lens. It's not weatherproof, kind of a downside, but that's what works for me. As far as primes, I have the 23 and the 35, which are 35mm and 50mm focal length equivalency. And I also have the 56 f1.2 and the 16mm, which are f1.4 and f1.2 respectively. And they are, the 56 is like a 85mm portrait lens equivalent, and the 16mm is a 24 wide landscape lens equivalent. So those are the lenses that I have, but frankly the lens that I prefer the most is I use the 18-55 the most, and if I'm doing portrait specific work, I like the 56 because it's beautiful and super, a lot of bokeh. And I also like the 23 f2, which is an amazing lens. I have the 35mm, which is the 50-meter equivalent. That I actually got a bad copy of that lens. It's got a decentered element. So if you take pictures of things that are fairly close, it works well. And for like street photography and just general pictures of people, I really like that 35 f2, and I think it's the cheapest lens. It's weatherproof f2. It's super fast, and I got a bad copy, so it shows up when like I was taking pictures of fall foliage, and it looked like it was a bright yellow tree, and like the center was sharp, and then like everything else was like blurred around it. And it looked like the eye of Sauron from Lord of the Rings, and I was like, this is not normal. And I tried stopping it down and all this other stuff. But I got it like Gray Market international version of the lens, no warranty or anything. I got it off of eBay for not very much. So, buyer beware. No big deal. I still keep it. I still use it because I'm not going to sell it, and I'm not going to throw it away because shooting people, like when my daughter and like at a party or something around the house, it's not perfectly sharp, but it still makes really lovely portraits, and I like the focal length. So those are the lenses that I use for the X-T2. Good question, and thank you. And guys, if you have questions in here, the format, I usually do these live streams around 8 p.m. Tonight was a little bit, had some family stuff going on, so I'm a little bit later. Eastern Daylight Time, that is, 8 p.m. But I try to get on Friday nights one way or the other in the evening, and I try to make the time as consistent as possible, and I leave my live streams up on the channel. And the way I usually do is I have a few things that I want to talk about, which I'll put in the subject line, or maybe it's down here, for the video, and then I will, always super happy to take questions, comments, and have discussions, and usually that's the way things go, is I have, a little bit to chat about and share with you guys. Like the G7 giveaway that I mentioned, and that is kind of the main, one of the things I wanted to announce because I made that decision, and I want to talk about that a little bit tonight. I want to talk a little bit about my photo book that I got from Google, and Google is printing photo books now. I saw one of these on Reddit, and since I have like a pile of little photo books, what I've been doing a lot of is printing, rather than printing images like as single images. I've been doing a lot of these little books, and some of them I send to my patrons. I have a Patreon page for those of you who may not know, or who may not know and be interested also, where I send my printed work a couple times a year out to the people that are supporting this channel directly. But I have a video, or I am going to do a video in the next couple of months, as time allows, about printed photo books, and kind of a couple of different services that I've used, my thoughts on the print quality, the size, and like recommendations there, because I think that printing your photography is super, super important. It's a whole different ball of wax, and it's very fulfilling. I mean, my wife got me the Fuji, another Fuji camera, the, oh hell, what's it called? The Instax Mini, or the Instax 90. I don't know if it's a mini, but like, you know, even having these little Instax like prints, you know, it's just, it adds a real tangible component to what we're doing with the creative side of our photography. And I think that that is super important and cannot be understated. It's super important to print, and with the availability of cheap options to get little photo books made. I don't think any of these photo books cost me over $20, and some of them are, it's funny to see how printing has developed over the last, like, cheap printing, financially or economically cheap printing, how that has developed from being kind of, you know, the first couple of books that came out at that price point were not so good, and now there's a service that I found on Instagram called Zeno, Z-N-O, Zeno. Their books so far, and I haven't, and I'm going to open the Google book here in just a moment, but Zeno, their stuff is the print quality and everything. I mean, it's not huge, it's kind of 5x7-ish, but these are like super thick pages, you can see. So like, this is the front cover, this is one page, and then like the inside pages are, you know, about 1 millimeter thick, so they're pretty thick, and the quality of the print, the luster and everything, it's just beautiful, it's magnificent. Anyways, I don't mean to go way down that rabbit hole with you guys right now, but it's just exciting to me how many options there are to get printed work that is of exceptional quality at not much money. And if you haven't gotten into printing, I highly, highly recommend taking steps in that direction. The Panasonic giveaway, the G7, again, if you're subscribed to this channel and you have notifications enabled, once I get the video edited that's going to have all the details in it, that will come out. You'll get that notification. And, you know, I would prefer not to have somebody enter a giveaway for a camera that I'm giving if you don't actually like my videos too. So, you know, if you only want to subscribe to the channel for the camera, well then, you know, maybe do us both a favor and don't worry about it. But I wanted to give this camera away because I realize that there are a lot of people who are on YouTube, maybe are younger or are in between jobs, or maybe are struggling and come here to YouTube to learn about photography and to get invested in photography as something that is a means of escape for them, and people who don't necessarily have all the money for the equipment. And I don't, unfortunately, have the resources to give a lens away with the camera as well. I have the camera and some batteries, but the good news is the lenses for these little Micro Four Thirds cameras, they are ubiquitous and they're available at a fairly low price. So, you know, when I recommend a camera to people, most of the time, if I don't know any specifics, if somebody says, what camera should I get? I want to get a real camera. I most frequently go with the Panasonic G7 because it does so much, so well, and it's so cheap, which is a pretty tough combination of things to beat. And so I don't use the G7 anymore because I have the GH5, and in love with the GH5 I have been for some time, as you will know if you've watched my videos. But the G7 is just a fantastic camera for somebody who's looking to get involved. And so basically the idea of the giveaway is that I'm going to have, you know, folks submit comments with info about what they, you know, why they want a camera, basically. And I know that sounds a little bit open-ended, but it's like, what creative avenues do you want to explore? How is your life going to be different if you have a real camera to go out and do stuff? Hey JB074, yes, this is a mirrorless camera, the Panasonic G7. It's a very small mirrorless camera, Micro Four Thirds sensor, so it's a smaller sensor, but one of the best all around cameras, at least I would say, from that standpoint. But since I made that video talking about how I was going to quit photography, not quit photography, quit professional photography, it's just been really reaffirming to me how many people have kind of come out of the woodwork and said, hey, you know, I totally get where you're coming from, because photography means this to me, and photography means that to me, and more than I could have ever imagined in a very short period of time, people are, you know, really gravitating towards, you know, this vision of what photography means to them, and that really inspired me. And I want to be able to give something back beyond just, you know, sharing my own experience here, which is what I do in most of these videos. So yeah, so that's kind of what I have in mind for the giveaway. I want to help somebody make a difference in their life, and, you know, frankly, I think that when I look at the impact that photography has had on my life, and then the impact that I've been able to have on other people's life because I found photography for myself, it's like, you know, you are really having an opportunity to pay something forward when you're able to help other people get involved in a pursuit like photo and video work. And I don't mean work professionally or commercially, I mean just opening that door of exploration as something that is available. Because for me, I kind of take for granted the fact that, like, okay, if I want a camera, I go out and I buy a camera. But for other people, you know, that world of photography is not something that they can just open the door and step into, because they have 5 cameras sitting on the shelf behind them, which I don't have 5 cameras. Actually, no, I probably have more than 5, although they're not all expensive. Some of them are, like, half of them are like old film cameras that are like less than $100. But even that, you know, that's a significant investment to a lot of people. And so, you know, I love to be able to give somebody that kickstart and give them that availability, or make available to them that technology to go out and start doing that stuff and kicking that off. So that's kind of the goal behind the giveaway, and what I have in mind for that. I have never done a giveaway before, so if you're watching this and are thinking like you're supposed to do it all in one video and you're doing it all wrong, and like what you know, yeah, I know I'm dragging it out a little bit because I've never done this before, and I'm trying to figure it out as I go. And the last thing that I want is to kind of, you know, do it too quickly and wind up giving my camera to just, you know, somebody who just happens to pop in and weasel it away. I want this camera to go to somebody who really is invested in the vision that I have at this channel, which is of a community of people pursuing photography for the love of storytelling, and because of what specifically the things that the ways that it improves our lives. You know, that's the vision and the motivation, not just like, oh, I want a camera. Anyways, enough about that. I've had a lot of conversations with people this week on the YouTube channel about you know, motivations in photography and all of that, and I can tell you that once you have your motivations kind of nailed down, and you can say, this is why I'm doing what I'm doing, it makes everything much better. And for me, you know, I just crossed this Rubicon, if you will, and just making the decision that I'm no longer going to try to support my family through my photography. In one sense, it's like, yeah, I'm giving up on a dream. And I've had a handful of people, you know, come on the channel and be like, hey, mate, you're a quitter. You need to not be so negative. And it's like, no, dude, like, I love photography. Photography is amazing. I'm not bagging on it. I'm not saying, oh, I can't succeed because there are too many people with iPhones. Poor me. It's not that at all. It's that it's just a hard way to make a living that is harder when you have less time, in addition to the fact that it's a lot of work and its gear is expensive and blah, blah, blah. So there, you know, there are all of those factors that are involved. But for me, the thing that I really took away was being able to say, you know, I clarified what my motivation is. I know why I'm shooting now, and I know why I'm not shooting, and that has made such a big impact. It's just given me so much peace in the last week. And if you have not seen that video, just for frame of reference, you know, I'm going to be going back to school this fall and working towards entering a nursing program, because I have experience in emergency response as a former search and rescue. I did search and rescue when I was out in the desert Southwest as part of a climbing group, and also, you know, I've done and taught a lot of first aid and safety on a collegiate level, and I've had type 1 diabetes for 20 years, so I'm I've been around a lot of the different elements that go along with medical care, emergency response, and etc. Something I've always really enjoyed, and frankly, one of the questions that I struggled with a lot in my, attempt to make photography a career was, am I making any kind of a difference? Am I making an impact on the world with my photography? And I kind of went down the path of pro photography accidentally. I wanted to do a documentary project, put it out on social media. It was kind of like supposed to be sort of a quasi-reality TV type of thing, where I went, lived out of my car for a year, climbed for 365 days, made a documentary out of it just to kind of raise awareness for type 1 diabetes and show people, what a different way of looking at that condition could lead you towards. Not to say that everybody needs to be a climber or what have you, or even give specifics about type 1 diabetes. It was more just like, here's a challenge that I live with. That's how I deal with it. Let's have a conversation about that and see where it goes. That was my mindset, and it wound up inspiring people much more than I anticipated. And I wound up being able to license some of my footage, being able to license, and do screenings of the documentary, which was my very first effort. That's the most viewed video on this channel, which actually I'm moderately curious of what that is at right now. Last time I checked, it was like 90,000 views or something, which is, for me, like, looking at that work now, 295. Wow, I can't believe that many people would ever want to watch something that I made, frankly. And that work was really bad compared to like some of the things that I've made recently, because I had no idea what I was doing, because it was all completely accidental. But then I realized that, like, speaking about stuff that I was doing, and the story and the advocacy and the community part of what I had put together had some value. And that's kind of how I stumbled into recognizing that, oh, there's, I have a thing here that I'm doing. But clarifying, and I kind of forgot where I was going with that, frankly. But the bottom line is that my motivation being cleared up and established has made it so much better. And when I started that very first project, it happened very accidentally. I didn't go into it intentionally. And my motivation when I started was very clear that I was going to make it a whole year living on the road in a car, climbing at least something, every rock climbing, for context if that's not clear, every single day. That was going to be my thing. And like on days when it felt awful, when I felt like a complete failure, when I had a bear break into my car when I was climbing in Yosemite, I was literally on the side of a cliff and a bear broke into my car, and then the rangers scared the bear away, towed the car, impounded it, and made me feel like a complete loser, which, to be fair, was my fault, and they were right about it. But, days like that, the only thing I needed to know was tomorrow I'm going to climb something, period. Right? Like, I knew what my motivation was. It was very simple, and it didn't make a lot of sense in the bigger picture, but it was just like, this is what I'm doing. And what I found is that, kind of the further I got from that, having a family, being a little bit older, having more responsibilities, then it's just kind of like, okay, I'm not, 27, 28 years old anymore. I got a kid, now I have to start parlaying my skills into something a little bit more useful. Well, what skills have I learned through everything I've done? Well, I'm a photographer, let me start kind of pushing it that way. And the motivation part of it got a little bit blurry in my mind, and it was harder to wrap my head around. And so now my motivations are different. I realize that I just want to be able to shoot stuff that I want to shoot because I love photography. I don't want to shoot stuff because somebody else wants me to do their thing. And just the little bit of experience that I had shooting a wedding this past weekend was really good confirmation of that. I was like, man, if I had to do this every weekend, I don't know about that. Like, it was hard enough, it was stressful enough dealing with a dear family gathering rather than like just complete strangers, although maybe that would make it easier. I don't know. But knowing when to quit and at least having clarity and making a choice. Decisions bring with them clarity, and clarity is a good thing. Limitation is a good thing as well. It's not about having all the options and all the best stuff. It's about having a clear idea of what you need and what you're going to do. And then once you know what your limitations are, then you move forward and everything is good. So I've defined those limitations for myself, and I've been rambling on about this for a little bit. Again, guys, if you have questions about anything related to or not related to anything what I'm talking about, please go for that. feel free to ask. So what I want to do is I want to open this photo book. Just got it in the mail today. And you guys are going to be the first with me to witness the unveiling of my first experience with Google Photo Books. And like a true narcissistic photographer, thank you, JB. I appreciate that a lot. And like a true narcissist, I have a cover photo of myself here. Now, to be fair, I'm kind of kidding about the narcissism thing, although, I mean, you could say that, you know, photography and video and doing stuff on YouTube, it may not be narcissistic, but it can go there pretty easily. Thank you, AJ. Much appreciated. Somebody appreciates my narcissism. This is an old picture. Actually, not that old. It's like 2009, so it's probably before, like, most of you guys were born. Not really. I feel old these days. This is actually me on top of, well, this is me on top of Devil's Tower in Wyoming. And of course, this is me in front of my coffee cup. Yeah, this is the summit of Devil's Tower in Wyoming. And print quality, I mean, this is an old photo. And this is the first time I summited Devil's Tower. And it's kind of a weird crop. It's like one of the weirdest photos ever, but it's also one of my oldest climbing photos. And the summit of Devil's Tower, it's just completely nondescript. It's like a grassy hill. Super, like you go through this big epic climb to get there. And then it's just a hill with some sage and shrubs and stuff on it. But it was really significant for me because the day that I climbed this, I actually climbed it with my wife. Exactly a year after we saw Devil's Tower for the first time, and a year prior, we saw Devil's Tower from the campground below. We were on a cross-country road trip and kind of blogging and taking pictures back when, like, blogs were, like, what are blogs? Nobody knows what a blog is. Like, back in, what was it, like 2007, 2008. And we looked up from the campground, and I was like, come on, babe, we gotta climb this. Because I was just getting started in climbing at that time. And, of course, I was gung-ho, and she was rational and sane. And she said, good luck climbing that. Make sure you have life insurance and a different partner who is not me. And so this was the day that she and I, for the first time, climbed Devil's Tower together about a year later. And so that picture's always been kind of special to me. Even though, and actually a lot of the pictures in here are older images from, like, my early days before I was, you know, before I would have ever considered myself a photographer on any level. So the print quality actually is quite good. And this is soft cover, and you can get a hardcover version. This image here is from the Gifford Pinchot National Forest in Washington. And again, this is from that same 2000, actually no, that's from the previous year's 2008 road trip. 2008, 2009 is what all of these are. This is the Wind River Range in Wyoming. That is Flat Top Mountain, and had a bit of an epic there. Oh, it's like out of the way, sorry. Let me hold that in the way so you can see it. It actually kind of looks like Devil's Tower. Kind of looks like El Capitan in Yosemite, too. That mountain is like 16 miles away from where we're standing at when the photo was taken, and we were going to go hike out there and scout it out to see if we could find any, you know, climbing routes that were available on that. And I wound up getting sick because I mismanaged my blood sugar. I was a rookie mistake, but I screwed things up, took too much insulin, and things went a little bit sideways. But some of these pictures have always been really special to me, and this is another one. This is some former quarters of, like, the sheep herders and the ranch hands that used to, you know, ranch on the public lands there in the Wind River Range, in that area there by Lander, not Lander, Green River is actually the name of the area. And I mean, looking at it, it's hard, I think, for you to get a great sense of it on the YouTube because you can't really see super well, but the print quality, I mean, for the size, I'm pretty happy with it. This is a sunrise in Price, Utah, and this is very near Price, Utah. Just some old carcasses, and I was like trying to be artistic, and it's funny because like I didn't really have a lot of idea what I was doing at that point, but I knew that if I got close to it and I got close to the ground, that maybe that would look cool. And yeah, so part of the thing that got me interested in doing these little books is, you know, instead of always backing up my photos digitally, it's like, you know, the quality of my photos gets better and better, you know, because megapixels and technology and all of that stuff are, you know, increasing. But I was thinking, you know, like some of my greatest memories of the photographs are older ones from like way back that maybe aren't the best aesthetically and the best quality photographs, because I didn't, at that point, I didn't even know what a RAW, you know, versus JPEG. I didn't know any of that. God forbid, right? And so I have been going on this kick where I've been trying to dig out all like the little crappy old pictures, but the ones that really started my love of photography and adventure and travel and all of those processes, and printing them and backing them up on Google Photos, which is, that's how all of this kind of works. You know, use the Google Photos app. You can back up with unlimited storage at whatever the quality that they allow, which is not the highest possible quality. In some cases, they limit the size of files that they'll put there, and so they do compress some of your photos, but it's still good just to have a record, and it's a real easy way that you log on there every now and then, automatically rips the data, you know, if you're comfortable with that type of thing, off your phone, and then you can use that photo app to then you know, aggregate those photos into a book and have it printed either in hardcover, which you can get actually larger books. This is like a 7x7, I believe, and I think 9x9. I think the cost for this was right around $20, like 18 bucks, and then with tax it was like 22, tax and shipping, something like that. So about 22 bucks. So not super cheap, but this is a fairly decent size. I'm pretty happy with it. This is it next to, you know, next to a coffee cup. So it's pretty decent size, and it's a really, you know, it's a nice way to be able to keep track of older pictures that, you know, don't pop up on your Instagram feed or your Facebook profile. And like, these are like, going through this is so many really good memories. Like this one here, this is in, or very near, what's the name of it? Cedar City, Utah. And that, like, this was a super frosty morning, driving up from the southwest, from Zion National Park up towards Salt Lake City on the 15, and the irrigation system here with the wheels, you can see it on the fence, like the irrigation system was spraying, but then overnight it froze, and the horses in the background, like, just grazing and chilling, like, you know, everything is normal. But kind of like the concept of ice in the desert has always been really enticing to me. And this one here, this is in the Bishop, California, super popular and beautiful bouldering area. You can climb on all these really coarse granite boulders, and then this is the Wheeler Crest, I believe, or Mount Tom, I'm not sure which one, in the background there. But we spent a bunch of time there, you know, just goofing off and climbing and taking pictures. And for me, these photos in this book are from the, you know, from the time when this stuff was still new and fresh and exciting, and when I didn't know enough to know the gear that I quote unquote needed, but from when I was just like, oh wow, like I can get a little lower to the ground and make a picture like way better. I can move closer to a bush or a dead animal's skull and make foreground. And it was just like this, the very nascent stages of my love affair with photography. And there's something about that, as, you know, inept as some of it was, there's also some of it where it's like, man, I wasn't overthinking anything. I was just kind of like, oh, this looks cool. And it's super good memories. And of course, these are a few more photos from that area, and you can see just for some scope there, or scale, the size of the boulders there in buttermilk country, they call it, there in Bishop, California. And these two rocks here, these are the grandmother and grandfather Peabody boulders, and they're both like the size of a house, and they look like just little stones there, and I've been on top of both of them. Pretty exciting moments getting to the top of the Peabody boulders, I will say that. And it's a little bit scary, because then you're like, okay, I climbed up here, and now how the hell do I get down? And as you're climbing up, you're thinking to yourself, does it make sense for me to go higher? Can I even, in fact, get back down? And so these are a couple pictures too from this Google book. My beginnings in night photography. So here, this is portrait of the artist. Set up a long exposure shot, and really it's nothing at all to write home about in terms of, you know, compared to what anybody can do now with better technology. But this is 2008. And I was pretty excited about this, and it was just where I really started to dabble. And this is 2011, and the Black Hills of South Dakota. And I took this from a campground where I was staying, and this, of course, pine tree here in the foreground, and then the lightning striking up in the Black Hills there. And caught just a hell of a lightning storm, and that was one of the pictures I was super excited about. And the problem was there was a bunch of power lines in the way, and this is one of the few shots that did not have, you know, just a pile of power lines in the way, goofing it up and making it look awful. Let's see, what else do we got in here? Oh, okay, so these are a little bit more recent. This is a sunset on Mount Kilimanjaro, which I was there in 2013 in Tanzania with a group of like 12 other climbers that have type 1 diabetes, and they recruited me for that expedition because they saw the videos and the stuff that I had been doing, the photography. And they said, hey, we have a sponsored expedition, do you want to be part of it? I said, yep, let me just grab my camera. And so then I went on that and had, you know, my expenses paid, which was awesome, and I'm very thankful. I don't think I deserved that. It's not like I'm, you know, some, you know, special climber or whatever, but it just happened to fall in with the group because I have type 1 diabetes, and so did the other climbers in that group. And got to make some really incredible photographs and a little movie on the dime of Sanofi Aventis, which is a you know, pharmaceutical company that sponsored the whole racket, and met some really cool people out there. And on the climb of Kilimanjaro, I was dragging, well, I don't have it sitting up there right now, but I had my Nikon D600. I had just gotten enough money together to buy a real camera, a full frame camera, because they're better. At least that's what the prevailing wisdom, and technologically speaking at the time, like, you know, the DSLRs were way ahead of what mirrorless was doing. And I dragged that frickin' D600 and the 24 f1.4 lens, which is not light combination, up Mount Kilimanjaro, shot time lapse and some, you know, you can see all those videos. They're all here on in the playlists. I have like a couple climbing playlists here on, if you visit my, you know, my homepage on the channel. And one of the days we were kind of waiting to summit, and they had a film crew that was with us, and I kind of hit it off because I was like, oh, let's talk about cameras. Like, I know a little bit about cameras, and I love photography. And the guy who was the camera operator, he was shooting with a little Fuji X100 like S, I think. It was like the second model. It wasn't super advanced, but I saw the pictures that he was making. He was like, yeah, I just use it for shooting stuff around camp, you know, at the end of the day. Like, the light is really nice. You just go around and take people's pictures. And I was like, that's pretty cool. So then that was the next evolution for me. That's how I got hooked on the Fuji cameras, was right here on the slopes of Mount Kilimanjaro. That's when I realized Fuji cameras is something I want to check out. And just an example of some of the work that I have done with the Nikon D600. This is the, oh hell, what's the name of that? Not the picket range. I want to say the picket range in the minarets. I'm sorry. Yeah, this is the minarets in the Sierra Nevada, and there's 3 traverses that run along the length of the Sierra Nevada mountains, like along these ridge lines that from a climbing standpoint are highly, highly sought after, because there a lot of effort that goes into getting back there to the mountains and then staying on top of the ridge line for miles with, you know, you're still climbing 100 feet up here and 200 feet down there and rappelling 50 feet over here and climbing back up there, and you're not able to like use ropes for a lot of it because, you know, you would be out there for a year if you tried to like pitch it all out with ropes. And so the Minaret Traverse, that's actually, I took this shot here from Mammoth Mountain, the summit of Mammoth Mountain. This is a panorama that I stitched together, and I shot that from the summit of Mammoth Mountain, which is, so the minarets are just behind there a little bit. Really wild country, and I've always wanted to go and do that traverse, and I have not done that yet. So moving right along, a couple more of the pictures that are in this photo book so you can get a sense. And again, I'm not starting from super high quality pictures. These aren't like ultra high res. These are JPEGs that were on my phone uploaded to the Google Photos app, and then the book was assembled from there. So all of that taken into consideration, I'm super happy with the quality of what we have here. So this probably one of the most significant photos of my life, for fairly obvious reasons. You may or may not. Oh, there goes my monitor. There goes my fill lighting. Poor man's fill lighting. This is a picture of my daughter showing off her prowess as a climber at like 2 days old. We're still in the hospital there, and I was kind of taking care of everybody because my wife was still in pretty bad shape after the delivery. It was, you know, it was a hell of a thing. Frankly, we reminisce about that sometimes. It's just like, man, can you believe that actually happened? And I'm like, yeah, dude, how did you do that? Like, that's hard, grisly stuff to push a human being out of your body. But it was kind of cool for me. I had never, you know, obviously had a kid before, and being a parent has just been so... It's incredible in a lot of different ways. Difficult, good, bad, whatever. I'm not going to wax eloquent about being a parent, but where I feel like photography really turned a corner for me was when I had a child and fell in love with this little person. And I was at kind of a rough point in my life because, like, at that time, it was kind of a similar point, actually, where I'm at now, where it's like, ooh, photography is hard, and, like, the projects that I had been doing that I'd gotten sponsorship for, it was like, now I had this little human being in my hands that I just did not want to be apart from for any reason, for any length of time. And I kind of fell in love with photography just as a way to capture these moments, because shortly after I took... and actually, this is not my picture. This was, I think, like 3 weeks or so. And my daughter was like 3 weeks old. This is my wife's handiwork. So, you know, full disclosure, this isn't my work. But like a couple weeks after this photo was taken, I wound up going out to Wyoming, Wind River Range, and I was in the backcountry for like 3 weeks, living in a tent. It rained and hailed every single day, lightning storms every single day, eating like, you know, what you eat when you're camping and you're 16 miles from the nearest trailhead, which is like 10 miles from the nearest town. Pretty out there, pretty isolated stuff. And it was like that picture of my daughter, which I had, you know, just had a low quality print made of, and I like kept in my journal, and I kept with me, and I would look at every single day, and I had no idea how hard it would be to leave that little baby and go sit out there and take, because I'm a climber. I'm like, you know, this is what I'm supposed to be doing. This is what I love doing. This is my thing, you know, and it's like I'm out there doing my thing, and all of a sudden my thing doesn't feel very, you know, doesn't make sense to me anymore. And all I can think about is just being back in Massachusetts and in a housing development with this little person who's just like, you know, captured my life. And so turned a corner there for me with a lot of the photographic stuff, where I started to see it as the emotional impact that comes along with capturing stuff. And part of that trip that I took out west, this was one of the photos that I took, and this is actually after we had been out kind of in the tent for however long. And this is actually this is my friend Martin's photo. I got photos of the same light and the same climb. This is me in the red jacket, my pal Jeffrey climbing. This is City Rocks in Idaho. One of my hands down favorite places. Beautiful climbing, beautiful light. And I miss my daughter so much that I really did not enjoy that nearly as much as I could have or should have. Something I kind of regret, but in hindsight, it makes a lot more sense now than it did at the time. But have a whole series of photos of this and some videos also in the climbing playlist on my channel. And then of course when I came home and I finally saw my daughter, and yes, I have printed a photo that has an Instagram filter on it. Sue me. I'm not a professional anymore, so I can say that, and yeah, I can say that with 100% impunity. There is an Instagram filter on this photo because that's the way it went up into the cloud, and I didn't feel like, you know, trying to crop that out or remove that. But I hadn't seen my daughter for like a month and change, and oh man, it was the most amazing thing. I just missed her so much, and I got to see her, and like my wife captured that picture, and one of my favorite pictures ever, and so I'm super happy that I have it printed. And then after she took that picture, we went in and ate Five Guys, and I ate like a huge amount of bacon and cheese and fat and meat, and it was fantastic. So yeah, I'm at the risk of being a little bit sappy. Again, a couple days after I returned, and you know, doing some reading, spending some quality time with my daughter, playing the guitar. She was way into it, and the funny thing is, my daughter she loves music. She makes up her own songs. She's I mean, now she's 3, so she's almost as good at most of the things that I taught her as I am, which is kind of like, it's like, okay, you know, like, first it was like, oh, I love you so much, I want you to be strong and smart and competent, so let me teach you everything I know. And then I teach her everything I know, and then she's better at it than I am, so it's like, hey, slow down, please, because you're making me look bad. But another night shot. This is where we were in Wyoming, the Wind River Range. This is what mountain is that? I don't know what mountain that is. That's just one of the little nondescript peaks, but this is facing away from our campsite across the lake, obviously the Milky Way. Really nice, you know, lack of light pollution, so you get some nice Milky Way shots out there. That was a night where and the mosquitoes, oh my goodness. Of course, this is a picture that my wife sent me from the time that I was out there, but the mosquitoes, let me tell you, the worst mosquitoes I've ever experienced in my life. They were so thick, like I would wear 2-3 shirts, and it was like 85, 90 degrees during the day, and the mosquitoes were so thick that like you could put your hand down anywhere on your body and you would kill more than one at a time, sometimes like more than 3, and they would bite you through multiple layers, and they just didn't stop. And like my hands looked like hamburger when we got out of the Wind River Range. The mosquitoes were that bad. It was madness. And they were very hungry. And so it's like you kind of got to this level of suffering, and I know that it sounds a little bit, at the risk of sounding a little bit like a whiner, I'm going to take that risk because mosquitoes are awful. They're the worst things ever. Not the worst things ever, but they're pretty bad. And when there's that many of them, there's no amount of repellent, there's no amount of clothing, there's nothing you can do other than like hide in a tent, and even then you'll still have that where you just had to give up and just be like, okay guys, you win. You want to suck my blood, you want to, you know, eat me, you want to make my life miserable. I'm scratching just thinking about the mosquitoes. They were so bad. I just was like, okay, you just kind of get numb, and you're just like, okay, yep. You just reach this like 1,000-yard stare type of thing where it just can't really get any worse, and you accept it. Couple more. So this is just like my favorite ever, playing the guitar, my daughter joining in. And again, I know everybody wants to show people pictures of their kids, and that's so special, but like, you know, it's a pretty special moment, okay? I gotta say that. It's a pretty special moment between us, and again, it's all about being able to have this crystallized in a way that if the house is on fire, you bet your ass this is one of the main things. You know, maybe my social security card, a couple other things. This is coming with me out of the house. You know, and this obviously a picture of my daughter, but this is one of the first film photographs that I printed, and this I shot with the Leica R, is it R3? Yeah, I think it's a Leica R3, and 50 millimeter, I think f2 Summicron, which I sold that rig because, oh, I have a kid and I'm broke because I'm trying to do photography for a living, and had to kind of free up some money at one point, so I did let that particular camera go, but I still shoot film a whole bunch, and that trip and those photos specifically of my daughter taken with the film camera is just like very, very impactful to me. Really, you know, just the film part of it too, not just because it's pictures of my daughter, but like it really opened me up to the avenue of like, and the value of film photography as being like its own pursuit that has its own charm to it, because there's so much more risk, and because there's so much more risk, there's also less pressure in a way, because if you screw it up or you don't do a great job, well, it's like, well, yeah, what do you expect? I'm not shooting a DSLR here. I don't have to make beautiful pictures. I'm going to just like kind of, you know, there's an element of surprise and chance that's encouraged and that's intentionally introduced. And then a couple of my first, you know, outings, adventure outings with the Fuji X100T. This is up on the Kolob Terrace in Zion National Park. And then from the same trip, it may be hard to get the scale of this photo, but that's my buddy Rob climbing up across a patch of ice on a sandstone slab that goes down for several hundreds of feet and then drops off behind him in this area here. It drops off down here into a canyon, which is probably like 60 or 70 feet, you know, more or less straight down. You probably bounce a couple of times, but the way this area was set up, it's because you can see, you know, the shade here, and the sun is moving, or the shadow is moving this way, and so the upper part, of course the worst part of the climb that you don't want to fall off of, because, you know, if you fall from the top, you're going to fall further, and that, of course, is where all the ice was held. And my buddy Rob, kind of a crazy guy, love him to death, one of my very best friends, and here's another picture of him bushwhacking through some, just like, well, I like this picture because it really gives a good sense of just how thick the brush is out there where we were in the backcountry. And part of the reason the brush was that thick was because it was a heinous affair getting around the snow at the top of that canyon, and so when we came down, we didn't come down through marked trails. We came down, just kind of bushwhacked through canyons to get out, and that's kind of the way things always go if you go out with my buddy Rob. You know, you just got to be prepared to do some schwacking because it's going to happen, and I hate going out with him. I love going out with him for that reason too, but it's always a love-hate thing, and we're always, you know, it's like, oh, Rob, is this hard? Is this something that I need to bring like an extra day's worth of clothes and water and food for? Is this something where it's going to be really dangerous? Oh, no, it's fine. It's going to be good. And we get up to the top, and there's like, you know, the sandstone is crumbling because it's wet. Sandstone breaks when it's wet. And then, you know, there's ice and snow and everything, and it's just, the whole thing is a mess. A couple more pictures, because this is about photography, right? This is the that climb that I showed you earlier. This is my shot of my buddy Martin climbing here, and again, the light is just golden hour. Beautiful lighting there. And then this is with, and this, to be clear, this is with the Nikon, the climbing shot here. And then this little transient waterfalls in Zion National Park, and that was the Fuji X100T for my first trip out there with it. Earlier in the day, out with my buddy Rob, him climbing up a gully, grabbing onto a ill-advised and unsturdy piece of just what amounts to dead wood. And let's see, I got another one from another Milky Way shot. This one is from the White Mountains in California, the White Mountain Observatory, very near there. It's at about 11,000 feet or so, just across the Owens River Valley. And that is the area where the oldest living thing is, the Methuselah tree. It's out there. I hiked out to the Methuselah Grove. Of course, they don't have it labeled like this is the Methuselah tree, because then a bunch of idiots would, you know, have pocket knives. The Boy Scouts, not saying that all Boy Scouts are idiots, please, not trying to be offensive, but having done some guiding work and seen, you know, how Boy Scouts leave their ropes in canyons and stuff, and like, you know, draw with rocks on the side of things, and are like, oh yeah, you know, so-and-so troop number 142 was here. No offense to troop 142, just kind of pulling that number out of my head, based on an inscription that was literally in one of the canyons in Utah, and it's just like, oh my goodness, how are these people, like, how is this happening? But anyways, yeah, the Methuselah tree isn't specifically marked, but there's a grove of really old bristlecone pines, and I don't know, I might have actually shot one of those for this in this book, or I know I shot one of them, but I don't, no, it's not in this book, sorry. But yeah, it's pretty amazing area, and it's, so the elevation is super high, and like you can get really beautiful shots of the Milky Way, and this one here happened right as somebody drove, like I literally slept out there taking pictures underneath this tree, and it was not too far from a road where a car just happened to drive by at the moment when I was exposing that shot, and there you go. Wound up with some interesting lighting, and away we went. A couple more. Fuji X100T. This is my pal Jeffrey climbing at Seneca Rocks. Of course, I climbed up first, and that's him coming up underneath. Also Seneca Rocks. And the funny thing is, like, I never really appreciated shooting backlit stuff until I got a Fuji camera, and I don't know whether it's the fact that the Fuji cameras handle, you know, really wide dynamic ranges well. I think that's part of it, but also part of it is the fact that a lot of the pros that I've seen who shoot with, sorry, I got like hairs in my mouth. Yes, Corey Baker, West Virginia, you were correct, Seneca Rocks. Man, I forget the name of the town there. I keep getting like a hair on my tongue, and I'm trying to do all these things, and I keep thinking about taking a sip of my coffee, but I'm too busy talking and like trying to pull hair off my tongue, so it gets complicated. But anyways, yeah, a lot of the pros that I found when I was researching pros who shoot with Fuji, yeah, JB, have a great weekend. Thank you so much for tuning in. Corey, you've been there twice. That's awesome. You've been there more than I have, and I would love to go back. Super, super, super awesome place. Really hard climbing, though. It's pretty solid climbing out there. But anyways, yeah, the backlit stuff, I started seeing more of the pros that shoot with Fuji, and like David Duchemin. I don't have it in here. His most recent book called Soul of the Camera, great book, super inspirational. He's like the, you know, he markets his work, not his work, but he markets his educational services and mentorship to amateurs. And he's a very big proponent of, like, shoot what you love because you love it. You don't have to be a professional. And I've actually had the privilege to interact with him personally a few times. He's just a fantastic guy. I love his work. And he shoots a lot of stuff with very strong backlighting. And that was one of the, you know, kind of when I started getting into that. And then, of course, different kind of backlighting. And again, this is from the same trip to Seneca Rocks in West Virginia. Sorry, bumped the rig there. This is, you know, just after climbing, my buddy Jeffrey, this is his headlamp here, and it's, you know, kind of sundown-ish, but we put the pot on, boil some water, and get ready to turn in for the evening. And something about the headlamp and the dark, but the bright light and the dynamic flickering of the you know, the stove, the camp stove, a certain thing about that. It's just interesting light, and that's really what's always been fun for me about photography, is like, ooh, that light is kind of weird, that's doing something interesting. I wonder what happens if I point a camera at it, right? A slightly different variation of that, which is me with my daughter on her first birthday. Again, this is a Fuji X100T shot, one of the few, and I'm drawing to a conclusion here. Both of these shots are from Idaho. This is a a crow or a raven or some sort of, I'm not a bird photographer as such. I am a photographer, and that is a bird that I took a picture of. I happen to have a 300mm lens on my Nikon D600, and so I saw the birds flying around, and it was kind of cool, blew out the white background, and I've used this picture a lot. It's one of my favorites. I need to get a bigger print of that because it's actually pretty decently detailed, and there's a lot of, you know, it's a nice looking crisp shot, even though it's cropped in a pretty decent amount. And then the other one is a picture that I took again with that 300mm lens from a ways away. My partner, or my buddy Jeffrey, and his partner Martin, climbing a climb called Rain Dance, and you can really see the texture on the rocks there, out there, and again, that's all City Rocks in Almo, Idaho. Now, good, bad, and the ugly as far as the printing job goes here. Gotta say, this picture of my daughter, she is not in reality that orange. I don't know if you can see how the colors look a little bit not great, and the page is a little bit uneven. It's almost like the binding is a little bit goofed up. And yeah, she's making kind of a funny face, but she's like a year old. Okay, give her a break, right? But yeah, that not the best. I'm not super happy with the color rendition there, but again, the quality of the picture, a small compressed JPEG, you're gonna that's probably somewhat to blame, and sometimes the colors do funny things, but overall I've been happy with the colors. And the very last photo, of course, that, you know, how I want to close this book out, that's me and my daughter climbing out in Utah in Zion National Park. There's the Watchman behind us, and we're on the entrance boulder there, and I'm helping her do a little bit. Oh, I should hold this thing in a way that doesn't completely, there we go. It's hard to know how to like show pictures on like of a book on a video, but one of my favorite photos ever. And again, the thing that I feel like is so relevant and so important, you know, frankly, the Google book, it's decent. I'm not blown away by it in terms of print quality. But, you know, the thing that ultimately means more is, like, image quality is not the same as a quality image. And so when you have an image that exhibits a quality that you care about and it's something meaningful to you, you know, that counts for a lot. It goes a long way. So Google, you know, maybe YouTube, since they're owned by Google, they're going to penalize this video and like crush this in the analytics. But I don't know, not super impressed with the print job. I think it's fair to Midland, but, you know, good, not great. But still happy that I got the book printed, and again, for the price, you can't really beat it. But it's hard to put higher quality photos on there because you have to use the Google Photos app, which are just things that you upload, and when you upload, it automatically downsizes and compresses them. So it's harder to really get super high quality photographs. But the better quality photos, the larger photos that I started with, those printed out much better than the ones that were a little bit, you know, thin to begin with. So guys, it has been 63 minutes and 30 seconds. I am going to conclude this live stream because my wife is downstairs watching The Fifth Element, and I kind of would like to catch a little bit of that with her. And I need to finish my coffee, but I haven't taken a breath in the last hour. So, I'd be interested to hear any questions, comments, anything like that. Kind of wrapping up in the next 2 minutes. I'll try to get to anything that you guys have for me in the next 2 minutes, let's say. Otherwise, I'm going to just sit here, slurp my coffee, and, you know, we can do that too. If you guys don't have any questions for me, I want to thank you for tuning in. Corey says, my Fuji is still giving me problems, by the way. Corey and I went back and forth about this a bunch earlier. I don't know what the problem is. Sounds like either a camera or a lens issue. My first line of just specific to Corey, your problem there with the camera, I would say try a different lens first. If that doesn't fix it, then, you know, probably the whole thing, you know, if you could get it, send it back or cash in some sort of warranty or what have you, that would be my recommendation. Anyways, guys, I do these live streams every week that I have access to internet. If I'm traveling, I don't always have access. Sometimes I go visit my dad. He doesn't have internet because he thinks it's still like 1980. And yeah, it does suck a bit. And let's see, Amadiography asked me if I've ever used Panasonic 42.5 with the G7. No, I have not ever used that lens with the G7 or any other camera. The only lenses I've ever shot Micro Four Thirds are the 12-35 Panasonic and the 25 f1.8 by Olympus and the 45 f1.8. And I have nothing but good things to say about all of those lenses, although I will say that the 12-35 seems to work better with non-human subjects. It's not my favorite lens for portraits because it's just a little too crisp. Whereas the Olympus lenses, they give a little bit more. I like the way they handle skin tones a little bit better, but you know, your mileage may vary. But yeah, those are the lenses that I've used with Micro Four Thirds, and those are actually the 12-35 is the only lens that I've ever used on the G7. Oh, that's not true. I had the, excuse me, the 100-400 millimeter, that huge Canon of a lens. Canon as in big gun, not Canon the manufacturer. But that is the only lens I've had. Hello, Lauren L. You have arrived right as I am in the process of wrapping up, but I'm glad that you made it here. If you have a question or a comment, drop it quick. Let me know. I'm getting ready to go downstairs and watch The Fifth Element with my wife, and so I'm just, it's funny, like I will talk for an hour and either I'm so boring that I hypnotize people and they're not able to click away, or they like my story. So I hope that you like my stories. It's funny because, like, you know, I'll talk for an hour and I'll be like, do you guys have questions? And I don't hear anything. I'm like, okay, well, we're all done. It's been like an hour and a half of me sitting here blathering. I'm going to get going. See you guys next week. And then it's like, hey, have you ever used this lens? What do you think about this? Oh, you know what? My camera's doing this funny noise when I turn it like that. What do you know about this? And then everything kind of comes out. And then I go on for another 2 hours because then, you know, people start talking. And I love to talk. I love to listen. I love to talk about photography. I love to talk about cameras too. You know, it's all part of good fun. But anyways, guys, I do have to wrap it up, and so I am going to go. If you have questions or comments or anything else, feel free to drop them in the link below. I do answer comments and questions very frequently, and I would encourage you to check out my Instagram. Follow me there if you want to see more of my work. I'm always, you know, able to get out more of my photography, of course, on Instagram than I do on YouTube, because a lot of my videos here on YouTube are just kind of this stuff, a little more conversational, so a little different flavor if you want to interact with some of my work. Lauren says, I liked your video about quitting pro photography. Very interesting thoughts. Thank you, Lauren. That's very, very kind of you to say. Thank you much. I've gotten some amazingly kind feedback from people and about that, and it seems like the issue of kind of being on the fence as like a pro who's struggling and, like, you know, just alive in the pro game enough to keep going but not enough to be like comfortable. Seems like that's a situation that a lot of us find ourselves in. So I'm glad to have met you, and that the video, you know, had some impact for you in that way, because I almost didn't share it because I'm like, this is stupid, nobody cares. And now, like, with all the comments and views and everything that's come from that, it's like, well, now I have like 3 more videos that are kind of spin-off or related to that topic that I'm going to be making. So again, if you haven't already done so, subscribe to this channel, enable notifications so that you know when the G7 giveaway video drops, and so that you also know when all of my videos drop, because you wouldn't subscribe to some jerk's channel because you want a camera, right? I mean, that's silly. That's silly. That doesn't make any sense. Hopefully you find your way here maybe because you're interested in the camera, but something that I've said or something that you've seen here on the channel has made you a little bit interested in kind of being part of this community and what we're doing here, which again is all about telling your story with a camera, not for profit, but for the inherent good and pleasure that comes from, and the camera looks both ways, and it enriches our life. And I hope that I kind of was able to demonstrate a little bit of that just for myself, you know, with some of the pictures I showed you guys here tonight, and with, you know, the conversation in general. It's all about telling your story with a camera, because that really does matter. It's not about getting paid. It's not being better than everybody else. It's not about, like, you know, the pixel peeping and the sharpest lens corner to corner, and, like, you know, that stuff really doesn't matter. Like, I can tell you, I shot a wedding this past week, and not professionally, totally amateur. I was like full-on amateur mode in that, in my role there as a wedding photographer, just like a crazy cowboy. But yeah, I was like, look guys, you know, I'm not a wedding photographer. That was like my introduction. So it was like, look guys, I don't do posing. I'm an adventure photographer. It's like, keep it natural or whatever. And so that was how I got everybody to relax, because they're like, does this guy know what he's doing? Is he crazy? Does he belong here? And like, kind of caught him off guard a little bit, did some cool stuff. But yeah, Lauren, photography is for documenting my life as far as I'm concerned. Amen. I am right there with you. But I can tell you, after shooting a wedding, actually 2 weddings technically, because I got recruited to shoot a video for the second wedding, thanks to my well, I was happy to do it. I'm glad people think of me when they're like, we need somebody to make something nice out of this important moment in our life. Why wouldn't you want somebody to think of you and hand you a camera and be like, you can do this? Like, hell yeah, I can do that. That's what I do. So yeah, I'm honored to have had that opportunity. But like, you know, you see the pictures and what comes out of it. Like, the people are not, what's important is not like, ooh, you blew out some highlights there. I don't know about that. It's like, no, this is like awesome. It's special. It's special. It's important. And it's part of the story of somebody's life, you know, and we all have the opportunity to do that every day through the work that we're making and through sharing that and building relationships here with each other, which is why I hope you'll subscribe, enable notifications, come back for more videos, comment, holler at me, connect with me on social media. I will link that down below at some point. Right now I'm going to go watch Fifth Element, so I'm not going to do it right now, but I will do it. I'm at Living Vertical on every social media platform, just in case anybody is wondering and wants to do that right now. You all have a wonderful night and an amazing weekend. I will have videos up Tuesday and Thursday every week, as much as I possibly can with my new schedule coming up in the next month with nursing. And then, of course, every Friday around 8 p.m. as close as possible, live stream, amateur hour, right here, leading it. Kaiwi, hello to you too, and also at the same time, goodbye, because I am hopping off. Everybody have a good night, wonderful weekend, and we will see you on the next episode of the Adventure Photo Show Living Vertical vlog. I probably should pick one of those two, but I feel less pressure about picking a name and kind of sticking to it, because it's gone back and forth from a few different things. I always felt really bad about it, because it's like, oh man, this is so unprofessional. And now it's like, yeah, it's unprofessional, so like, big deal. All right, have a good weekend, guys. Thanks for hanging out, and we'll catch you later. Bye-bye.